Hey Mindset community, Dr. Ellen here, coming to you today with your next tire talk. I had an awesome email this week about plantar fasciitis, and so I thought I would let you guys know some awesome information and give you some tips of things that you can do to work this out yourself, as well as prevent it from being a problem in the future. So for those of you who haven't had plantar fasciitis before, consider yourself absolutely lucky because it's very painful, and it can be a big problem because this is a problem that involves the bottom surface of the foot where your arch is. So if we take a little bit of a look into some anatomy, and we break the foot up into three regions, we have the rear foot, the midfoot, and the forefoot. Okay, and your foot's job is to not only dissipate forces as you decelerate, but to be a rigid surface when you're beginning to propel and generate forces. Okay, and specifically, that's the rear foot, which is where that plantar fascia attaches, is right into the calcaneus. Right here is the heel. All right, so sometimes when this is under load from poor mechanics repeatedly over time, it will not only become inflamed, but it will also tug at the surface of the calcaneus so much that your body will actually lay down more bone to protect itself in the form of a bone spur. So when people come in and see me and they say, well, I have a bone spur and that's the cause of my plantar fascia, I say, time out, no it's not actually. The plantar fascia has become such a problem that it's actually pulling on the surface of your heel. And keep in mind, the plantar fascia isn't the problem. That's a product of the problem. The problem is your mechanics and how you're using your foot, okay? So if we go back to this rear foot, as you decelerate when you impact the ground, you want that surface to be pliable in order to dissipate forces, okay? And the best way to do that is to have this foot slightly everted or this heel turned outward, okay? That is what we call eversion. Now, when you need to change the function of that foot to now become rigid in order to be a surface where you can propel off of, you need to be able to get that heel back into inversion, okay, where that heel comes inward. If you can't do that, you're pushing off of a sloppy foot, and specifically a sloppy midfoot, really overstraining this plantar fascia and the arch. And so over time, again, that will become very, very, very inflamed and lead to many other problems. So the typical culprit of this plantar fascia problem is the calf. That tight calf yields poor mechanics at the heel because that's where this beast attaches. It's two main muscle groups called the gastroc and the soleus. They join into the Achilles and then attach down into the heel. So again, if these guys are tight, they're going to make all sorts of weird mechanics and angles here to generate weird forces that yield problematic inflammatory loading patterns. Okay? So just one quick trick, if you are going to be stretching out your calves and you want to avoid this strain on the plantar fascia and promote better mechanics for both deceleration and acceleration at the foot, here's some tricks. So traditionally, runners are very familiar with the running stretch. It's a great stretch if you use it correctly. So now, first thing you need to make sure of is where's the foot pointing. If it's pointing outward, can you see how my arch is flattening? There's actually a little bone right in here called the navicular, and you can see that pop out. That's a bad sign because we are flattening the arch and we're kicking the heel outward. That is not a position I want to promote. So therefore, we need to first neutralize the foot, make sure it's pointing nice and straight ahead. Okay, and then what you want to do is actually cross your front foot to the opposite side. Did you guys see what that did to my heel? Ooh, that's a pretty looking foot. That rear foot is tucked in nicely. I've got a good arch, and that is a beautiful surface that I need to be able to propel off of in my running. So this can be a static stretch. Now look at my front foot again. I'm crossed over midline here with this foot. That can be a static stretch you hold for about 30 seconds. Usually on average you do 3 rounds. But for my runners and higher level folks, I like to make that a little more dynamic with maybe a swing across during the stretch, or even maybe some rotational work. I mean, you can really see what's happening at my rear foot and my arch right there. That's a beautiful thing. So just a couple quick tips. Now that's usually level 1 for plantar fasciitis, but for people who've had this a long period of time, typically we'll see a primary issue and multiple secondary issues. So don't be afraid to give us an email or a shout out at mindsetpt.com. Ask your questions, because the calf is not the only thing that can cause plantar fasciitis. We can see problems up into the hips, as well as into the opposite hip, and even into the lumbar spine if you're lacking rotation and things like that. So we're happy to help. We're here for you. I know this was a little bit of a longer video, but I hope it was very informative and gave you something you can use. All right? We love you more than you know.